Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blank and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC TV show podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Priscilla Welch. Welcome to another week with me. I know I usually discuss everything that is trending on multiple networks or my favorite shows, but today I want to introduce you all to my love of anime. Many of these shows also have video games as well, so you can play them on places like Jump Force, which is a crossover game consisting of all anime/manga characters. So, what is anime? Well, anime is basically something that started in Japan, of course, and it's basically like a cartoon, but we don't call it cartoons, of course, we call it anime. The same way how like an adult cartoon you wouldn't call a kid cartoon. So, I will first start off the show today with my favorite anime of all time, and it is called Fairy Tail. And I would like you all to stay tuned because later in the show, I will be discussing one of the anime shows that are currently still going on today and the upcoming updates and the upcoming season and rumors of what's going on within the show. So let's begin. Again, I hope you all are doing well. And if you've never heard of anime before, well, sometimes if you think of like Naruto, Pokemon, like the old anime Dragon Ball Z, maybe your kids have watched it, maybe some of your friends have watched it, or colleagues. So, of course, there are certain different types of anime. We have like dark anime, we have anime that focuses on basically all different types. We have anime that focuses on romance, we have anime that focuses on superpowers, anime that focuses on real life and business. So it's a lot of different genres. And it's amazing because everything is jam-packed and fit into and based off of everything that goes on in Tokyo, Japan, which is why a lot of people who are big fans of different anime shows would like to go to Japan one day to actually see these replicas and stuff like that in these amusement parks in Japan. And lately, other countries have tried to also do what the Japanese are doing when it comes to anime, but I feel like me personally, and this is just my opinion, anime is just pure Japanese. I just can't see any other culture able to satisfy me when it comes to what I want in a good anime show. So, now that I said that, again, I literally have a tattoo of this anime show that I'm about to share with you all today. So, to break down the show, again, it's called Fairy Tail. That's spelled Fairytail. And the show, basically, to break it down, it's about these different guilds, and a bunch of these teenagers and kids, they basically are all connected in a guild. And, of course, Fairy Tail is one of the top guilds in the show, and it revolves around them and the other guilds that they encounter, and whether it's villainous or whether it's hero-like, but it would basically be like you're either a dark guild or you're either a guild that follows the light. And the guilds basically are under the council of the Magic Council, which is basically in charge of everyone. They're like the government, the leaders. And every guild has a guild hall, and they all literally like live together pretty much. They work together on different missions and help the citizens of their country or their city or whatever the case may be. And, you know, we have different levels of different wizards that it depends on their power. So a lot of these characters, you know, they can either go on a big adventure by themselves and defeat a crazy beast, or they can work together as a group and they could be a strong team within their guild, and probably even the most popular. Then a lot of times too, besides, they have like magic games, they have different altercations where people know each other in different guilds. Everyone basically has a reputation. So first of all, I never even used to like anime before, and now, like I said, I have a blue fairy tale symbol to prove my loyalty and love for this show. So the show takes a long time to finish, of course, because I mean, just to finish one season alone, it's 175 episodes. The second season is over 200, and it just feels sometimes really long. But once you get into the show, I mean, for any show, once it starts off in the beginning, you really have to like pay attention and kind of be patient with it for it to actually like build up. So that way you can actually have a clear understanding of the show. So even though I watched this show like a couple years ago for the very first time ever, I never even heard about it before because I never used to watch anime. But I rewatched the first season again to have like a little bit of refresh memory. And of course, the show is all about friendship, love, superpowers, not giving up, family, betrayal, and becoming friends also with your enemies, which is very strange because a lot of people don't even have the heart to do that and to forgive people. And of course, it's about fighting for what is right. This anime usually has, again, a manga, of course, and the manga is basically like the comic series that will come out before the actual show is animated and broadcasted, especially in Japan and in America. The author for Fairy Tail is actually Hiro Mashima, and it's about 63 volumes. So my favorite characters personally are Urza, Mira, and Natsu. Urza is known as the Titania Queen. Beautiful red scarlet hair. She can literally re-equip immediately. So she has like all these different like costumes and all these different types of like weapons, and she can automatically do it, and she's known as like a fairy queen. And like she's an S-class wizard, and she's just unbelievably powerful. And if you know like her backstory, for example, basically what she went through, she was a little girl who her mother left, and she basically had no family, and she grew up with other boys and girls that eventually came to their own power. But however, she was a slave, and she was taken from this cult to actually go ahead and build this tower that's supposed to get to this god named Zerif, which we'll get into later. Then we have Mira. Mira is a she-devil, and I like her power because she's very timid and can be very loving and caring, but it's like when she automatically turns into a she-devil, it's like a completely different person. It's like a takeover power that her brother and younger sister also have. Her brother, who is the middle child, and then she has a younger sister, Lizana, they have takeover power too, and they could turn into like beasts or different other types of animals. But Mira's in particular, it's like she turns in all these different types of like devils and has different levels of it. So it's pretty cool. Natsu, however, is my favorite character of all time. Natsu is basically like one of the main characters of the show. It kind of revolves around him, especially towards the ending of the show, which actually the last season premiered last year. And Natsu is Natsu Dragneo. And basically he's a dragon slayer. So what a dragon slayer is, and it's about 5 others as well throughout the show, is they basically are these humans that are able to have this significant amount of power of a real dragon. And each dragon slayer throughout the show has a different type of dragon's power. Natsu in particular is known as Salamander because his dragon power is fire. And it's not just fire, it's just that he can breathe it, he can use his hands with it, his feet. It basically rotates throughout his entire body. So, of course, the show starts off with Lucy, who is one of the other characters in the show, and she's a celestial wizard. And a celestial wizard basically is someone that connects with all the spirits, especially like zodiac signs. And they're able to have these spirits basically a connection, a friendship, and they can partner together and fight together. And she basically wants to join Fairy Tail. However, she never met the real Salamander, and she actually fell for a trick for one of another wizard who was pretending to be Natsu. And at least that's how the season starts out. So it's all about finally meeting him because he saves her from this guy who was basically like taking girls and using them. And it starts off with a whole bunch of adventures with Urza, Gray, Happy, which is Natsu's basically like pet cat that can fly, which is pretty cool. And you can actually watch the first, or at least like half of the season for the first season on Netflix. But usually when you're watching an anime show, it's better to watch it on Funimation or GoGo Anime or Crunchyroll. So October 12, 2009, A1 Pictures and Satellite, the series went on hiatus on March 30th, 2013 with 175 episodes, 41 DVD volumes, 6 OVAs, and 1 animated film. And a lot of times, anime shows also have anime films that they do in between the shows, or they probably do a live action film. So the anime once again resumed on April 5th, 2014. Again, they ended on March 26, 2016 with 277 episodes released. The third and final season of the Fairy Tail anime was announced on July 24, 2018, but then it came out again later and aired again from October 7th to 2018 to September 29th, 2019. So that last episode was basically like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe they did this. Like it literally was a shocker, especially for me because I thought I was done with the show and they came out with one more season just to finally conclude it, so it wasn't a cliffhanger. It explained everything from the beginning of the show to finally the end. So it deserved a perfect ending, and that's what we got. And then there was about 328 episodes, so 63 plus DVD volumes, 9 OVAs, 2 animated movies at the time of the final episode. The anime has done a collaboration with A1 Pictures, Cloverworks / Bridge producing the anime. Again, like I said, it's all about guild members, whatever is the top fights. So for example, there was a situation with another guild and another dragon slayer between Natsu and Gagio. Gagio has basically iron dragon slayer magic, and he was from originally the guild called the Phantom Lord. And the Phantom Lords basically always had this rivalry with Fairy Tail, and it came to a point in the show where they went too far. They destroyed the guild hall, they endangered and harmed at least 3 of the Fairy Tail wizards by hanging them up against a tree. It was very just disgusting and violent, and Fairy Tail members couldn't take anymore. They're one big happy family, and they really showed the true meaning of friendship, because a lot of them from their past lives, they were literally abandoned either by their real family or they had problems along the way growing up. So when they all came together, it's kind of like they all had a lot in common, especially the main characters. And of course, there's a lot of storyline between Natsu and Zeref. Natsu and Zeref are actually brothers. And there's like this whole situation where Natsu Dragneel and Zeref Dragneel, they did it. Well, Zeref is the one that basically, he's a top powerful wizard that knows how to resurrect. He created demons. His power is basically taking away life. And over the years and over the centuries, a lot of people have come to know his power, and basically he became immortal. Basically he became a god. He also has a child with the first person to actually go ahead and create and help create the Fairy Tail Guild from so many years ago. And they basically lived around the same time. And it was basically over like 400 years ago. And again, that's with the leader of Fairy Tail. So a lot of times you get in an anime where you really have a strong connection with the wizards. So again, we have the other Dragon Slayers, which is Wendy, Loxus, Rogue, Sting, Cobra, and Gagio. And Larcade is basically the son of Mavis and Zeref. He basically has light and dark power because Zeref is basically, think of him as the devil, and then we have Mavis, who is like an angel. Like, so it's like an angel versus demon type of thing. So, and then of course that's Natsu's nephew. And then we also find out throughout the show that Natsu is actually END. He's actually the most powerful demon because over 400 years ago, he actually died in real life as Zeref's younger brother. And Zeref tried so hard for so many years to bring him back, but the only way he could do that was actually revive him as a demon. And Natsu was not aware of this until way closer to the couple of last seasons where they were kind of hinting at it over and over and over again throughout the show, but it was finally revealed to him when he had to finally face Seraph. So that's all I'm going to give you on that show. It's a very interesting storyline. There's also a difference between the Dragon Slayers, like who's first generation, who's second generation, because of the levels of power and how you can actually become a Dragon Slayer and how that power was born into you. So again, you can watch the show on Funimation, Crunchyroll, or GoGo Anime. And definitely stay tuned, because coming up next, I'm talking about my next favorite one. Yes, it is a dark anime called Tokyo Ghoul. You don't want to miss it.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. Keith keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Again, thank you so much for joining us today here at GSMT Television Podcast. Okay, so again, I hope you all are doing well. If you're now joining us and you're now tuning into the episode, we just finished talking about one of my favorite animes, and it's what made me fall in love with anime. It's all about Anime Day, and it is called Fairy Tail. And basically, you can watch again on Funimation, which is a streaming app for literally a lot of anime shows, and you can watch it on Crunchyroll and GoGo Anime. And again, basically, it's about a whole bunch of teens and kids that come together, and basically they have guilds, whether it is a light guild or a dark guild, and they focus on these different missions, and they go ahead and take requests from different customers and citizens of their country or their city or their town, and they basically perform the job and they get paid. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, right? So now we're going into a very dark anime, which is a complete opposite to Fairy Tail, and this one is more realistic when it comes to crime fighting, when it comes to different races basically against each other. And the races that I'm talking about within this show is actually called ghouls and humans. And it's basically about, again, what is right versus what is wrong. It is torturing. It is lust for power. It's so many twists. And this is one of those animes where it really gets straight to the point. It's not particularly long like Fairy Tail. Fairy Tail is, like, for example, one of those animes that has a lot of filler episodes, and it drags sometimes. It doesn't get to the point. And the seasons for Tokyo Ghoul is very, very short. And so basically, ghouls are, think of them as the vampires, and the humans, you know how humans are when it comes to supernatural creatures. And these ghouls, they have this idea that, well, they can't, first of all, they can't eat any type of human food, and it's very difficult for them to even try. So they have to feed off of human flesh. Now, they didn't ask to be ghouls, but this is what they have to do in order to survive. And humans, and especially there's a lot of them, think that ghouls are just the most disgusting creatures, zombie-like, vampire-like beings that just don't belong, and it was a mistake that they ever existed in the first place. So there's a lot of racism, and there is a lot of prejudice within this show. But what I love about this show is it focuses on the main character, who is not necessarily, like, for example, like Natsu. He is a very shy and simple boy who just wanted to go to college, and his name is Kaneki. So Kaneki is basically my favorite character. He is also the main character of the show. And he's not my favorite because he's the main character of the show. I just feel like I can relate to him when it comes to, he literally has just this one friend he can rely on. His mother died when he was pretty young. And he really, again, is a very shy and sensitive boy that literally, well, man, I should say, but he really goes through drastic changes, and he experiences so much, and you get to see his character and his power develop. Now, Kaneki is actually a human boy, but he actually gets turned into a ghoul. So he's like half ghoul, half human. And he doesn't really belong anywhere among this war between ghouls and humans. He actually is more of a in-betweener. And there's not plenty of those in-betweeners at all. And he finally works up the courage to actually date and acts out this woman named Riz. And Riz, she seems like she's human, but she's not. And it turns out it basically ends up in one bad date with Riz dying and Kaneki basically having Riz organs put into him as an experiment, because that was the only way for him to actually survive the surgery to like get him all back up together. And before this happens, Kaneki actually gets bitten by Riz, who pretended all along to even like him. She really just wanted him because he was food to her. So she basically devours him and they both die. She actually gets this thing landed on her, like a whole bunch of like wood, and it crushes her to death. Later, like I said, they get fused together and he becomes half ghoul, and later learns that the world he was dragged into, it's, you know, not what it seems. And he has to learn to be, again, human and ghoul at the same time. And like I said, these drastic changes that he goes through, like there is a part where between season 1 and season 2, he gets tortured by this other ghoul and picks on him. And he continues to keep ripping off his fingers on and off again. And he does all these crazy things to him and gets inside his head, makes him count the amount of times he's also getting tortured, and till finally his hair actually turns white. He becomes flexible, his nails and toes turn black. And this is actually my favorite part about his character, because this is when it's like, even though he's still human, he's like full on ghoul. Like he only cares about protecting his loved ones, but he does it in such a drastic way that he turns full blown violent, and he doesn't appreciate anymore the war, what's going on. But at the same time, he's fighting for the people that he cares about from Enteku, but he wouldn't kill on purpose, if that makes sense. Like he wouldn't kill just for the sport of it like other ghouls have done already, even humans. And he's trying to explain to everybody that both sides are wrong. It's not just one against the other and this one's right and this one's wrong. Both sides have lost innocent lives for like no reason, and they need to get over the racism. And then of course finally it ends where he turns also into Haze. And this is his other final transition, where he literally has no memory of his previous life, but instead he now is on the other side of everything. He's on the human side with the CCG, but he's still a ghoul at the same time. And he basically runs this task force of detectives that go after all these different people that's just doing bad, that are ghoulish. And then he has another change again when he finally gets his memories back as Kaneki. And he kind of, after everything, it's like his final stage. He ends up marrying Toka, which is basically one of the female ghouls that he works with at Enteku. And Enteku is basically like a coffee shop for ghouls and humans. They basically take anybody. It's not just one thing. But most of the time, it's more of a place like a refuge where ghouls can come and meet together and just talk and be there for each other as family. And the show is written and illustrated by Sue Ishida, and it's horror, it's supernatural thriller, it's very dark and gory, a lot of violence, and definitely not for kids. I would say maybe wait between 15 to 17 years old, me personally, if that was my child, to actually let them start watching this, because you really have to have an open mindset to watch it, and because of all the violence, I just don't think it is appropriate for young kids. But if you're into dark anime, if you're into anything dark with supernatural powers, but it's very horror and gory, then this is definitely the anime for you. It started September 8, 2011, and it to September 18, 2014 for the manga. But you can actually watch it on Hulu, Funimation, Gogo Anime, and there was also a live action film right after season 1, and it basically sums up everything that happened in season 1 and what finally got him to kind of start accepting, we see that he is a ghoul and human. And a ghoul, to explain what that is basically someone that looks like a human, has regenerative powers, enhanced strength, and what's interesting is how the detectives also, when they defeat a particular ghoul or kill them, they actually use their powers and they change them into weapons, then carry them in these suitcases. And this is called the CCG. They are the crime scene. They are the police detectives that go ahead and use that power, and they use like their kaganes. That's what it's called. So basically what I like again about the show is how we can really see the difference of the races and how literally there's no right or wrong here. Of course, there's a lot of wrong in this show, and it's very unfair to a lot of people that have died on the show. But like I said, it's more realistic than something that's like more fun and cheesy with Fairy Tail. Fairy Tail is more about, well, if they die, sometimes they come back to life. Whereas Tokyo Ghoul, if they die, that's it. They're dead. They're not coming back. And a lot of times if you get attached to a character, then you kind of lose them for good. So that's the unfortunate part about it. And what I dislike about the show is I don't like the fact that there were a lot of humans that swear they're doing good and basically were against the ghouls, especially like innocent ones that were just trying to survive, and they use like their powers against them. Like there was this one particular detective named Mako who had another detective under him called Amon, and Mako thought it was okay to just get rid of all ghouls, especially ones with families. Like this one girl named Hiname, her parents basically only wanted to make their daughter survive, so they would literally like fight and kill for her to make sure that she had something to eat, but she would never go hunting on her own. And he could never understand that. He didn't have the heart to understand that at all, where they're just trying to feed their child. So he literally would use their kagenes against them and as weapons. And I remember how even in the live action film, he literally used the husband's kagane, because he was the first to die, against the wife. And then he killed the wife, took hers, and then used both of them against the daughter. So it was very, like, just crazy. And again, so the show ended, of course, unfortunately, with, again, Tuka. And, of course, there was another war between the ghouls and the humans. And the war ended, but not really. It was kind of like a cliffhanger. And Tuka and Kaneki actually got married, and they had a child. So he actually kind of had a happy ending, but it was still sad at the same time, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. Again, so Tokyo Ghoul there's a season 1, there's a live action film right after that, then you watch Tokyo Ghoul season 2, then you watch Tokyo Ghoul Jack and Pinto, then you watch Tokyo Ghoul Re, which is season 1 and season 2. There's 2 seasons of Re's, and that's basically prequels to what happened before Kaneki and everybody else. And it was actually inspired by a short story called Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. And it was actually written in 1915 about a man named Gregor Samsa who somehow turns into a huge giant insect, and explains the torturing of Kaneki and what he went through when he basically turned into half a ghoul. And a lot of like different things that people don't really realize is Mon actually turns into a ghoul later in his life by the Agori tree. Agori tree was basically a group of ghouls who were very powerful and were basically rebels against the law. And even ghouls and humans alike actually did not like them in particular, because it was just all about them. So if you weren't part of their group, you were an enemy of them. Doesn't matter if you were human, doesn't matter if you were ghoul. And Kaneki actually joins this group to actually try to get justice. But at the same time, it was kind of like he was taking them down as well. So like I said, Kaneki was always an in-betweener. And Amon, like, he wasn't a bad guy either. He was just trying to do the right thing. And when he had his first partner, he thought that was the right thing, until he kind of later learned, like, hey, maybe not all ghouls are bad. Maybe it's just their personality and the way they are. And he learned that when he turned ghoul, but also when Kaneki taught him that lesson. So again, if you really wanted to watch the show, if you're into like supernatural and powers and anything with politics and racism, like this will definitely be the anime for you. But it's not just about that. There's some fun times as well, some good times, but the show again is pretty like dark. So if you're not ready to stomach it, definitely don't watch it. But again, you can watch it on Funimation, Crunchyroll, and Gogo Anime. So coming up next after the break, we'll be halfway through the show, and we will be talking about one of my next favorite animes, and it's called Black Clover. So stay tuned.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Again, you are listening to GSMC Television Podcast. And if you're now tuning in with us, we just finished talking about Fairy Tail. It's all about anime today, and Tokyo Ghoul. Again, Tokyo Ghoul, you can watch it on Funimation, Hulu, Crunchyroll, GoGo Anime. And if you're into dark anime, if you're into supernatural powers, if you're into the underdog basically overcoming his fears and just becoming the most powerful of them all, that's the show for you. And speaking of underdogs, we're coming up next to our another anime, and it is called, wait for it, Black Clover. Yes, you heard it here first, folks. This is the third anime I'm talking about today. And coming up again, stay tuned, because I will be talking about one of the top animes that are out right now, which is rumored to have a new season coming on its way, probably about another 3 seasons actually, based off its manga. So as you can see, there has been a theme with all the anime shows that I like, and it literally focuses on these male superhero-like characters. And as for Black Clover, it focuses on 2. And they're 2 orphan boys. One is named Asta and Yuno. And they basically grew up in this like orphanage church together. And especially with like other kids as well. And basically, even though they both don't come from nobility, it's very similar. So like if you are a big fan of Naruto, if you're a big fan of Fairy Tail, this is definitely the show for you. And it focuses on, instead of guilds and instead of it's more like Magic Knight councils. And basically every Knight council, the Magic Knights, like squads, they have basically a leader who is like a top Magic Knight captain under the Wizard King. So there's 2 kings. We have like the regular king, and then who also has a type of power, and then we have the Wizard King. The Wizard King, though, is the one that really deals with all the magic and the powers, where the other king is kind of above him and deals with all the citizens, including ones with powers and ones without. And again, like I said, Asta reminds me so much of Natsu. Asta is actually one of those people where powers basically don't exist in him at all whatsoever. But kid you not, he's actually an underdog. And what I mean is, basically, he shows everybody that even though he doesn't have superpowers or any type of power whatsoever, he actually does know how to fight, and he trains, and he works harder than anyone else. And so many people admire him that they want to be his rival. Not just, he actually meets other people along the way that are part of other magic squads that wants to be his rival because they admire his strength, his power, his leadership. Now, even though he acts, like a 12-year-old, because he kind of is, he is kind of mature when it comes to battle, at least, and it is very strong-headed. And basically, he is part of the Black Bulls magic squad, which in this particular show, the Black Bulls are not really respected when it comes to a lot of high nobles being on the squad, or the fact that they're kind of rowdy and reckless. And it is also because of their leader, and their leader name is Yami. Yami, when he first came to this area, he came as a foreigner, and at first he was not liked, but the Wizard King liked him, and before he was Wizard King, they actually became friends. And Yami basically is that type of Magic Knight captain where he's more real, more down to earth, and he cares about what is right versus what is wrong. And he doesn't care about nobility. He doesn't care about who you are and your past and whatever. He gives you a second chance. And that is what we like about this particular magic squad. And they're not a squad to be toyed with. I mean, they move like family like crazy. They're always there for each other. And I feel like out of all the squads, they're like the closest among each other because they've been through so much personally, But then when they come together as a group, they literally experience a lot together as well. And the series was written by Yuki Tabata. It focuses again on two young boys who basically grew up like brothers, which is Yuno and Asta. And again, they have other children as well that was among the orphanage. But what both of them want, basically, even though they came from nothing, is to become the new Wizard King. And they want to one day prove that you don't have to come from nobility to be powerful and strong. And Asta, actually, his power is more like anti-magic, and he actually has this devil that kind of resides within him and gives him that extra boost, that extra power. Yuno is actually a very powerful wind mage, and mages are basically like wizards. And Yuno is actually in one of the top, like, noble magic Night Squad. And again, you can watch this on Crunchyroll and Funimation, and it's literally one of my favorite shows. It actually is still going on currently. There is a lot of episodes I personally need to catch up on. One of the previous episodes that I saw was when they actually have to start setting off to all these other kingdoms besides their own, and Asta finds out he's not the only one that has any type of devil magic power, which is actually shamed upon and looked down upon because they feel like it's just automatically evil, which is not the case. So again, I want to talk about the powers of the Black Clover family. So again, Asta has an anti-magic. He has a few swords that he uses, and he basically can nullify anyone's magic. So just imagine going up against him. You think you're all powerful and almighty, and then you have someone come along here who doesn't use magic, but he knows how to fight, and he basically could get rid of your magic like that. So it's basically your magic is useless against him. And basically, if he allows the devil like take over him completely, then he literally will. It's kind of like he's kind of gone. And this has only happened like a couple of times throughout the show. But as far as I know, he hasn't got to the point where he has reached his full potential, at least from where I left off. But I do have to catch up. Then we have Magna. Magna is actually one of the superiors in their squad. And even though there's a lot of more people that's actually more powerful than him, at least in the Black Bulls. But his power is of the flame. So he kind of has like fire power, but I'm telling you right now, it's nothing like Natsu's, for example, or any other characters that you know that uses fire power. And then we have Noelle Silva. Her story is pretty interesting. She's also one of the main characters of the show that everyone also needs to look out for. She is the last of the Silver family. She has twins, brothers, and sisters, and then she has an older brother who is also another Night Squad captain of one of the most powerful families. And she was always looked down upon from her siblings. She was always blamed, example, for her mother's death. Her mother died when she was giving birth to her. Come to find out, though, as her character develops, she kind of has to get over this idea of just because she's noble and royalty, then anyone else that's below her has to, do anything for her and respect her. But as she gets close and acquainted with the other Black Bulls, she realized that's not always the case. And even though she may act like high and mighty, at least with them, but when it comes to like her brothers and sisters, the way she was treated, and especially treated amongst other nobles, they looked down on her. So she had to learn what it felt like to feel like not important, until she finally rose above that and let go of her fears and got control of her magic, because it was affecting her magic. And come to find out, her brothers and sisters, they finally did have more respect for her because they realized how powerful she was. And basically, she had the similar power to her mother, and it called her like a dancing sword type of thing, because she uses water magic, but she's able to get to her full potential a little bit in the show when she goes full on armor, and she literally has this style of like dance fighting that she does. So it's pretty cool. Then we have Yami. Yami uses dark magic. He's the captain, and he also uses ki. And for those of you who know, like with legends and, with martial arts, ki is basically what is used to kind of like use all 5 of your senses to know your surroundings. So like, say, for example, if you were blinded in a battle, you can actually use your ki to sense where that person is, or sense their magic in this case, and it helps you to fight even better. And again, he's the foreigner, and he also is able to develop and be more powerful in this thing called the mana zone, which is where you can sense someone else's mana, their power, and you can actually use it against them. Then we have Notched. Notched was actually a bird. Notched is someone that actually uses shadow magic. Excuse me, I was talking about Nero, but Nero I'll leave for last. He uses shadow magic, and he's actually one of the new characters on the show. And then we have Finral. Finral uses spatial magic, and there was actually a cruel, like, epic fight between him and his younger brother. And he basically wasn't always respected as his younger brother was, because he came from a noble family, but he chose to be, or he was picked to be in the Black Bulls because his magic, I guess, couldn't, like, really sum up to what his younger brother did. And so, spatial magic, he literally can teleport you from anywhere, and it's all about, like, using, it's a very weird magic, using this power in space and kind of, like, taking control of your environment and your area. Then we have Luck. He also had a very interesting backstory as well. To sum it up, he basically was kind of like low-key tortured as a child, and he at this point takes everything as a joke because of his life being so serious. And he's also pretty young, probably around Asta's age as well. And his power is actually lightning, which is pretty cool. Then we have Gosh. Gosh uses mirror magic and is pretty obsessed with his younger sister, because him and his younger sister were actually orphaned from a pretty young age, and their parents were killed, and people basically took advantage of them, and he had to actually put his little sister in an orphanage, and then he had to become a Black Bull. Then we have Vanessa. Vanessa uses thread magic. She actually comes from the forest of witches, but her mother, who is like the queen of the witches, basically did not treat her right at all until she finally was able to escape free with the help of Yami, and ever since then she's been a Black Bulls member. And she basically could change the fate of anything. So say if somebody was about to die, she can use her thread magic to basically reverse what happened. And she can also make magics out of that thread. Then we have Charmy. Charmy, she's very strange. She has a big crush on Yuno, but she's so cute about it. And her power is basically cotton and food. She can do anything as long as she regenerates. Also, she has kind of like these regenerate powers that gives her back her mana, and she also can give it back to her fellow squad members when they eat her particular food. And Charmy is a very great chef, and she has like this cotton power to like make any like big animal that she wants to help her in a battle, and it comes pretty helpful. Then we have Gordon. Gordon is a pretty emo, dark character, and his power is actually poison that he can use against you that kind of comes out of him, and he can kill you if he wanted to. Let's just say that. But he's also a very kind and sweethearted boy, and he doesn't want to be evil, which is why he joined the Black Bulls. We have Gray, who's transformation magic, and most of the time, instead of being a big fella, he prefers to be a woman. But apparently it's also a woman trying to be a man. So her character is pretty confusing because we're not sure if it's originally a man or if it originally is a woman. But it's supposed to be a woman though. And then we have Gray, who is another new character, and his magic, I'm sorry, not Gray, Zora. Zora uses ash magic and traps. Now, he wasn't with the original Black Bulls, but apparently he was all along, and he was just out there kind of doing his own thing. But he uses basically like ash magic to create traps. And at first he and Asta used to butt heads a lot, but they actually kind of grown to like each other. And then we have Henry. Henry is actually the first technically Black Bulls member, because actually their hideout is his house. And basically over the years, like, he was left alone there, and everyone always thought that it was some type of ghost, but really he can siphon other Magic Knights' power, and that's why he kind of has to stay to himself, so he can't really be too close to you. But he can also use recombination magic, which he can turn the hideout into literally anything. There was like this really cool episode where he turned the hideout into literally a big bull, and it was perfect because that's like their symbol. And they weren't taking any crap. So him doing that, it was able to be like this humongous, like beast-like robot machine that can basically fight. So it was pretty cool because he could also control it. And then we have Nero. As I mentioned before, Nero was the bird that actually was always pecking at Asta's head throughout the show. And come to find out, it was also hinted so many times throughout the show when it first started that Nero was actually somebody pretty important. She actually was a servant to the first Wizard King, and her power is basically sealing magic. And her powers is basically kind of like dark devilish too. And she's able to basically seal any individual or unseal them, and including objects. So overall, the show, it's, like I said, still currently on. I have a lot to catch up on, but it's a pretty good show. So if you like shows like Naruto and Fairy Tail, this is the show for you. And it talks about, like, you can also, like, based on any anime, you can talk about, like, different YouTube videos that people do throughout anime shows. So if you want to see, like, reactions, or if you want to get, like, a basic general storyline or upcoming things that are happening, like, in the show, in the anime, you can actually look those up on YouTube. And again, also, if you're fans of like One Piece as well, you will definitely love this show. So again, this show started in 2015 through manga, and then the anime series started in 2017. Again, the creator is Yuki Tabata, and it's an action shonen type of show, and it has many standout characters. So definitely you can watch it on Funimation right now, Crunchyroll, and GoGo Anime. It's really good. So again, stay tuned, because now we're going to get into finally the final show of tonight, and it's called Hero Academia. And again, it's following that same theme with the underdog and superpowers, and you don't want to miss it. Stay tuned.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now, don't bother, what's hot on Netflix, and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. So again, thank you so much for tuning in today. Today is literally anime day for me. Again, I know you're used to like me talking about like other genres, but I really wanted to do this for you all today. And now we're coming into our final show of the evening. So again, enjoy the rest of your week. Again, this is GSMC TV show podcast. And again, you can watch these anime shows on Crunchyroll, Funimation, and GoGo Anime. Those are like literally the top 3 where you can watch a lot of anime. There's other like streaming services out there, but in my opinion, these are the best. So finally, we're into My Hero Academia. And actually, they just finished their season 5 of the show, but there will be a season 4 of the show, and there will be a season 5, 6, 7, and 8 because of the manga series. So overall, again, if you like One Piece, if you like Naruto, if you like Fairy Tail, and if you liked all the ideas I've been talking about in this show so far, then this is definitely another show for you. And this show is all about having a quirk, and a quirk is basically a superpower in this show. And so basically how we talked about guild halls, we talked about Magic Knight squads. Well, in particular for this, it is all about being in a particular class. And within this class, we have Class 1A, that is literally where the show is revolved around. And Class 1A considers these strong, talented, kind of like first-year students who literally are looked on as the underdogs, but kind of because of this one big competition in the show, even though they're Class 1A, they're really super powerful, and they really have like a lot of potential to grow, especially like the top 5 guys. And so the storyline is this one kid named Izuku Midoriya, and he actually doesn't have a quirk. He's actually been quirkless his entire life. But the way the story goes is he's actually picked by the number 1 hero, and his name is All Might. All Might has this particular power called All for One. And basically with this power, he can access a super amount of energy. He has super strength, and he literally doesn't lose a battle until he starts getting more tired and older. And when he finally chooses is Midoriya as basically a successor. And a lot of people do get jealous that he is actually All Might's successor, but it is because of the fact that he's very humble and just wants to save the world and do the right thing. It's pretty cheesy. That is what basically attracts All Might to him and why he got the power in the first place. But the downside to it all is him gaining this power, he still has a lot to learn to use it and come to his full potential. And whenever he does use it, in the beginning, when the show first started, he will always break a finger or an arm or a foot. So he still has to learn how to basically control that power to the point where he's not breaking his bones. So again, we have Izuku Midoriya. Again, he's the main character, one for all, from All Might, releases power. And he's also part, of course, of the top 10. But the way the show goes is he's finally climbing up that ladder where he can actually be one of the top 5 and not necessarily the top 10 when the show first started out. Then we have other characters such as Kyoka Jiro. She basically has this earphone jack quirk, and she can tune into any sound, even quiet ones. And she can also amplify her heartbeat and use her earphones as a whip in a fight. And she has a crazy talent for music. A previous episode that was actually on in the previous season, they had to put on this show together for the entire UA school. And basically, Class 1A decided, why don't we just put on kind of like a music show for everyone that's part of the school and not just for ones that have quirks, because even though that the show focuses so much on people with the different classes and who has quirks and are trained by these superheroes, basically there are other classes that have like business and like finance and is more like real world stuff than like superpowers. And what I like about the show is, if you're a big fan of like Marvel, for example, like X-Men, and if you're a mutant, you literally are kind of looked down upon because you have the mutant gene, whereas it's the complete opposite in the Hero Academia's world, because you have a quirk, you have a power, and you are the majority. You're not the minority, as in the case of X-Men, if you were a mutant. And then we also have the next person is Asuai. Tsuusai. That is very hard to say the names in Japanese, but she has a frog quirk, and she can extend her tongue, stick to walls, she can swim really good, and she can camouflage, and she has these certain toxins that come out of her and that she could use in a fight. 3, we have Kirishima. And Kirishima is a very powerful quirk. He basically has a hardening quirk. He could turn into human rock, and it kind of withstands whatever you throw at him. We have then number 4, Momo. Momo is actually a very rich woman with a quirk. She can create things from her palm, so it comes in handy when she can create anything like off the spot, and it can help her fellow mates and herself. And then we have Ochako. Ochako basically has 0 gravity. That's her quirk, so it enables her to fly and also can use that power on her enemies, and she can also use it with her friends to give them gravity as well. Then we have Tokoyami. Tokoyami actually uses a dark shadow quirk, and the dark shadow can also be used as a protective gear for him in a fight. And Tokoyami also uses this dark shadow, like, so when it's darker in certain places, like say if it's nighttime, that power will generate out of him, and it's literally beautiful. And he's more of a serious character, but we start to see him lightening up as he becomes closer with his other classmates. Then we have Tenya. Tenya can run really fast and kick really hard. Think of the Flash, basically. But he has instead like engines in his calves, and that's what enables him to run really fast and also kick really, really hard. Izuku at the time when the first show started out was number 8, but like I said, he's climbing up the ladder, so this list is kind of like based off of like what was going on in the first season. Number 9, we have Bakugo. Bakugo actually went to school with Izuku Midoriya and knew that he was always quirkless. So when he finally did start getting his quirk and showing powers, he was like, okay, well, where did you get this power from? And he's actually one of the only ones that really knows exactly the fact that he's All Might's successor. But Bakugo has nitroglycerin, and basically he can use that to make explosive that comes out of his hands, and he can make that allow him to fly through the air. Then we have Todoroki. Todoroki is actually one of my favorites. He basically is half fire and half ice. So his father, first of all, was the number 2 hero because he was under All Might until All Might finally retires, and then his father becomes number 1. And it's pretty tragic about what happened with his father in the previous season. We don't know if it's confirmed yet, but you definitely have to watch it to find out. So basically, like I said, the plot of the story is like you literally in this world, if you want to become a hero, you have to actually go to school and train with real heroes, and then you have to get a license before you're even qualified as a hero first. And of course, you have to do your internships and kind of shadow other heroes, and you basically have to prove yourself. That's what it's about. So you can't just go off and be a vigilante. The vigilantes are kind of looked down upon here. You have to have that license. And of course, they have some crazy villains who basically hate heroes altogether, and they're all about defeating them and being complete opposites. So of course, like Class 1A, it's going to focus again more, especially with the new upcoming season, of literally them reaching their high potential as classmates and being a family as always. And then we start to see too, like who are they inspired by. Like Izuku Midoriya always looked up to All Might, and so did every other kid, but he has now that special relationship with All Might, so it's not the same compared to other children. Bakugo was also a big fan of him as well, but like Bakugo has a very different attitude about him, different personality. Like there were even rumors that Bakugo might turn evil because of how he's always yelling, he's always aggressive, he's always in a rage. So it wouldn't be surprising if he was, but when you start to get to know him more and his character and start to understand him more, even though he is the way he is, he at the end of the day wants to be your hero, and he wants to be number 1 to do it. So to me, I'm seeing more of a number 2 vibes coming from him, like Todoroki's father, and then Izuku would be more like All Might. And again, there has been no release date yet for season 5. Season 4 definitely hints that there will be a season 5, and this has been updated since September 8th of this year. And the manga series, again, like I said, is ahead, so there will definitely be a season 6 and a season 7 as well. And you can definitely watch Hero Academia on Netflix right now, but it only goes up to about season 3. And you would have to probably change your country origin to actually watch season 3. Then you can also watch it on Funimation, Goga Anime, Crunchyroll, and Hulu. And there also are rumors right now for Izuku Midoriya, because there's going to be a new awakening for him. And season 5 is going to definitely focus more on Class 1A and their improvements, and they will be up against Class 1B. Also, they will be introducing My Villain Academia in the new season, so that would be very interesting to watch, because for the villains we would definitely see how they become villains, because there might be also a school, like a rival school against them. But because of the pandemic, not until spring 2021 we'll probably get to see the new season. If it wasn't due to the pandemic, we actually could have watched it this past April this year. So August 2020 did release, though, 2 OVA episodes called Hero Academia Make It and Do or Die Survival Training. And it is based on the futuristic Japan, again, where people with powers are the majority and not in exile like X-Men. So also, the government can track their quirks, and All Might reflects basically American superheroes. He is the only one that's pretty much different compared to the other Japanese anime characters. And like I said, you have to go to school if you want to become a hero, and you have to have a hero license. You can't just go off and start using your quirk out of nowhere. You will get in trouble. And there's also a spin-off comic series called My Hero Academia Vigilantes, and I really do hope one day they actually make this an anime, because it would be cool to see, the ones that maybe didn't make it as a villain or a hero, and they're kind of like in between, because as a vigilante you're kind of just doing what you think is right, but you may think you're doing the right thing as well, but other people may not see it that way. They might disagree, which is why you would never have the status of a hero, but you'll have the status of a vigilante at least. So again, no release date yet for Hero Academia, but again, if you're into One Piece, if you're into Fairy Tail, the description that I described of how Fairy Tail is, like, Hero Academia is very similar. It's all about this underdog who literally gets this power, doesn't really know what to do with it at first, but grows into that potential, and it's all about for justice and doing what is right. And again, I love anime shows that literally have, a whole different world among them if you want to escape reality. And if you ever always wanted to have superpowers, then you definitely will want to watch all these shows. The only one that's different, again, is going back to Tokyo Ghoul, which is more of a dark anime. So again, thank you so much, you all, for listening and being a great audience. Again, you can watch all these shows on Funimation, Crunchyroll, GoGo Anime. Some of it is, depending on the show, is on Hulu and Netflix. I know Tokyo Ghoul, for example, is also on Netflix, so you can actually watch, the full season, because that show is done. But the current shows that are going on right now is Hero Academia. Black Clover is the one that's still going on right now. They're still putting out new episodes, but Hero Academia is not going to come out till next year again for another season. So thank you so much for listening to the GSMC television podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts podcast network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts podcast network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.